Okay, we're ready to rock.
Ready to go, yeah.
Okay, now this is a Jorgensen low angle block plane. They're designed for cross grain work, but on plywood they're pretty useful. They're not a bad tool, quite good, they review well, and I must say I'm impressed with it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to sharpen up a brand new one and get it ready for use. They are not, none of the ones you buy will be ready for use as they come out of the box. So the pressure cap comes off and the blade comes out. We see that on the inside the seat is properly machined, which is a really good thing. If you strip down a cheap plane in a big box store, that seat will not be properly machined and the blade can't sit flat. Now this brand new blade, we can see it in the light, has got grinding marks on the main bevel and grinding marks on the back. Where those grinding marks are, they are grooves, and as they cross the edge they make little bumps. Now I can feel it with my thumbnail, and if you're doing that, don't put any real pressure on there because right, you'll spring a leak. So what we've got to do is we have to flatten that back off until we've got it polished. We use oil. I use a mixture of about 50-50 kerosene and motor oil on my oil stones, but we don't have that, so we're using just plain motor oil, and that works. The purpose of the oil is not lubrication, it is to float the little bits of metal and the broken off bits of stone out of the cutting surface so that it will continue to cut. When you start to get black stripes in there, that's metal that you've ground off here and it's left in the stone and it will not cut anymore. So now I'm prepping the back, and I'm going to turn it round to the medium stone, and I'm sorry but the glue that held that in isn't gluing. Try for a bigger stone than this. The standard stone is about 10 inches long.
Make sure it's open.
And maybe 2 inches wide. But right now we can hear that it's cutting.
Yeah.
What grade is that stone? What is this? Is that a fine stone? Is that fine?
This is a medium stone.
I see.
This other one I've just taken off as a fine. And we need to remove a fair bit of metal. And we can see here where it's starting to pick up, right? It's filling up the stone with metal pieces. So we need a little bit more oil on it. And these stones have not been used with oil in the past. They're not mine, I must say. And you can tell because it soaks the oil up very, very quickly. And you can hear again that it's starting to cut properly.
Yeah.
Could I have a paper towel, please? Now note that I'm keeping it absolutely flat on the stone. If I were to do that, the back will then be rounded and it won't cut properly. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Lonnie, that's going to be in the camera.
I didn't see it.
Now you can see where I've been working it, where the polish is starting to appear, and I've got maybe 3 millimeters behind the grinding edge and a bit back here. These are always very slightly hollow ground because the wheel that grinds them is a great big one like this, runs along and it's tilted so that the trailing edge doesn't contact the work. It's only the leading edge, which means that it's going in a very, very shallow arc, and that shows up when we do this sort of thing on a flat stone.
Mm-hmm.
So now we turn it back and we put the fine stone back in place. It's got some oil on it. And we put a polish on. Now I'll go all the way down to 8,000 grit, but I'm a bit of a pedant when it comes to sharpening things.
How long will that edge last, do you think?
The sharper you get it, the longer it will last. But bear in mind that plywood, some of the manufacturers, most of them I think, use chalk powder in their glue so that it becomes a more effective filler. And chalk powder is highly abrasive, so your edges don't last that very long. And here we go. Now if we hold that up to the light, you can see that it's bright polished. So we've got rid of all of the grooves on the back. Now what we've got to do is we've got to put an edge on the front. And we don't try and flatten all that off. All we need is about 0.5 millimetre at the leading edge. So what we do, we're back. So in order to grind that, now that angle should be 27.5 degrees, and there are little jigs around that you can put on. It's a disc with V cuts in it, and each one will be labelled with the angle. You simply put it in, and that will tell you whether you've got your angle correct here. That's your main bevel, but it's the mini bevel, the micro bevel at the front that does the cutting. So we press down hard. You see that's sitting on the main bevel, and then we come up just a little bit, just there, and away we go. Right, so I've pushed it 8 times. It shouldn't require much more than that, and you can see
that
there's a tiny little bevel there, shiny.
A little shiny.
Now that's all we need to produce a cutting edge, but if you feel there, you're supposed to lick it.
Yeah.
Right, you feel there's a wire edge.
Oh yeah, it's a burr.
That's not going to cut.
Right.
Oh, just a little bit.
Yep.
Because
So what
from
we
that
do,
sharpening.
now, me being a pedant, I've got a piece of plywood about that wide, about that long, with leather glued onto it with a split side upwards, a hook on here so that it doesn't go anywhere, and I've got green polishing paste on it. What you can do here is we're going to use this piece of wood, and you make sure that you're not going to contact anything hard, and you simply strop it on there. You can actually do it on a pair of jeans, something with a coarse thread.
It's like the barber used to do
Yeah.
his,
Exactly the
strap.
same. Exactly the same. So now that is gone, right? You feel that? That wire edge just disappeared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we've gone from something that wouldn't cut butter to shaving sharp, just like that.
Amazing.
All right.
It didn't take all day either.
And it didn't take all day. So if you watch YouTube on how to sharpen chisels and planes, it'll take you half an hour, right? What the methods that they give you will take you a long time. This is quick, easy, and effective. So we set up here, and we don't tension it too hard, and we can drive the blade in and out with this little screw adjuster here. So we hold it up to the light, and we look at Mike out there, and we fall over laughing.
You don't have to tighten this at all, and just
No, that's the set on that is such that when we put the pressure on with this wheel, it levers up like that, and it holds the leading edge down.
yeah.
This guy here is to open and close the throat,
Right.
right? So for most of the work that we're doing, when we get the blade correctly in place, now note on these ones that the bevel is upwards, but the standard plane has about a 35-degree angle, and it has the bevel down with a chip breaker, a cap on it. So we hold it up and we're looking for that black line to appear.
Just a little.
Right? So if you have a look at that against the light, you'll see that there's a black line across
Right.
the sole, and that shows you two things. One is that it's very slightly higher on this side, and the other is that we've got just about the right amount of blade protruding. So what we'll do is we'll just undo the tension a tiny bit, and we'll just ease it across. There is a very small amount of adjustment available on these, so when you grind them, you need to grind them dead square across. And I see a little engineering square somewhere, and that's the one you use for checking your blade. So we're not going to use it right now,
Yeah, I just wanted
but
to
we use
see.
it when we do the bench grinder thing to do the main bevel. And we set the throat at about that for general use. All right, see the
Oh,
gap
the
I've
throat,
got there?
okay.
Yep, because
Right.
that shoe moves back and forth. That's peculiar to these low angle block planes. We don't see it on the bigger ones. The bigger ones, the whole blade mount moves back and forth. That's called a frog.
Oh, right.
Yep. Okay, so we're ready to go. So let's find a little piece of wood somewhere that I can shave bits off. But it's working perfectly.
Okay.
The last thing to remember is that, who's familiar with the term backlash in a thread? Any engineer will know. In a bolt or anything, there has to be a little bit of clearance or the nut won't run down
Right,
back and
yeah,
forth.
right, yeah, right.
So there's backlash. So what you've got to do is, if you move it one way, you then need to screw it back in to its finished position so that the blade cannot come back because of the backlash being available,
Right,
the clearance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And here we go.
Sweet.
Awesome.
It's an exact science.